Hello everybody, this is going to be a commentary over my Cuphead No Hit Run to use as a bit of a guide. We're going to go through the whole run, and some bosses have quite a few variations, so we're not going to see them in this run, but I have made an in-depth boss guide on each of these bosses, which I'll put a link to that playlist in the description. As well as if there is anything not sure about or anything you need to query, then put in the comments below, or query when I'm live at twitch.tv/waveloki. We'll be happy to help there as well. So going into it, in this run, I only do the bosses. I do it as a pure boss rush. So we're going to only have the pea shooter weapon and the smoke dash charm for this run. The pea shooter we get here, of course, and the smoke dash we're going to grab now. The guy on the bridge, if you talk to him, he gives you 3 free coins, and then we're going to use those immediately at the shop to get the smoke dash. And that will be our start game and end game setup. With this first aisle, there's the 5 bosses. I put Cagney at the start because I personally found him the trickiest and prefer to do him at the start, so you're not beating 4 bosses and then having to reset from the 5th one. So I just switch him right to the start. Yeah, that's personal preference though. I would recommend it though, as I think he is the trickiest boss, apart from perhaps Hilda. So for Cagney, I'd say to position yourself below the bottom right platform. This is a good place to avoid pretty much all of his attacks, or to move away from his attacks in a decent way. So with these first mobs, the blue ones mean the green flying mobs, the purple one is the one spawning on the floor, and the pink one that can be parried is the orange mob in the sky that you can only strike when it opens up to fire at you, as we do there. With the other ones that he spawns, the boomerang, that always goes along the top level and then comes back along the bottom level. And then the acorns, that route that you see there, so left, up, right, it's just a really nice simple loop, or a nice little square that we do in order to avoid those. Super consistent. Once in the bottom left with the cards that build up because of damage, once you get to 4.5 cards, that's when he'll go into second phase. So it'd be good. It's handy to keep that in mind. And then with this second phase, these thorns actually take longer than you think to come through the platforms. You do have time to get to an empty platform, and then just jump between the projectiles, parrying the ones that you can, as the attacks do speed this phase up quite a bit.
Hey, Luna.
The main thing with that is just not to panic, really. Once you see them coming through the floor, make sure to jump to the next one, and then be ready to jump, especially if the empty platform is the one on the right closest to Cagney, as he can be mean like that.
Okay.
But the next one will be...
Have you had a good
just need to turn that down a little bit.
time away? Ready to see...
The next one will be the root pack, which is super simple, not surprising. Like root pack, Goopy, always going to be pretty simple as the first 2 bosses we'll probably come across in that vanilla gameplay. So going into the root pack, the first one with the potato, he fires 3 non-parryable projectiles that we can just stay in position and jump over, and then the 4th one which we can parry. If you just stay in one position and jump up, which you can do, you don't need to move anywhere, and keep firing, you should be done before you can get a 3rd projectile off in 3rd phase. You don't have to wait for the 3rd parryable one, it's not really worth it. Then once we go into 2nd phase, spam all your EX attacks because we want to speed up this phase. He'll probably fire off 1 or 2 teardrops, and then he'll just continue firing off teardrops, and then if you keep firing, you should be done by the end of this first wave. I wouldn't recommend parrying the teardrops, they're quite awkward to do, so just walk in between them. And then with the carrot, you want to walk underneath or aim into the diagonals in order to get rid of. But walking underneath is the safest way. And then in this second attack, just smoke dash. Aim to hit him and then smoke dash to the side once he sends that attack towards you. But the root pack's super simple, nothing really to worry about. You'll get it in a few attempts, or get it consistent in a few attempts. Next will be Ribby and Croaks. This one does take a bit of practice. Not so much the first 2 phases because they're pretty simple. 3rd phase will take a little bit of time, especially the yellow one. But we'll go into that now. So yeah. So Ribby and Croaks. First phase, there's 2 attacks. The first attack will be the fists, or it can be the fists, and the second attack will be spawning the mobs. So here it's the fist one. So we jump over the first one that's on the floor level, crouch for the other 2, and then jump over the ground one Super simple. And then the second attack will be these mobs that spawn. So I position myself just in front of the table and then aim at a diagonal so that the mobs run into it. If you keep firing, they should only have time to do one attack each. Also, notice, doesn't that look like an imposter from Among Us? But anyway, in the second phase, you want to be walking under these projectiles at its first peak, and what I mean by that is if the projectile just goes straight up, go underneath it. If it bounces on the ground, you want to go underneath it as it goes to the top again. So it'll either bounce on the floor and then go up, in which case you want to go under it as it goes up, or it'll go straight up and you want to go under it on that first time it peaks, as it's the easiest way to avoid. Final phase, we've got a real simple pattern for those coins, which we'll go through on the next section. For this yellow one, we're going to be jumping through, walking back and jumping through. The walk back just gives us extra time to position ourselves for the jump and the ball's going to the air. When the yellow one shows, it means we're going to have to do this in a 3 cycle. So the coin, jump the first one, dash right on the second one, and then jump up and parry the third one. So yeah, jump over, back. And then, yeah, we'll show the coin in a quick sec again as well. So here, we jump over the first coin, we dash right on the second coin, and then we jump over to the left to parry on the third coin, so the coin drops below us. The red one, we can stay standing under those platforms that fire up, and then just jump between the platforms on top. The green one, you just have to jump every second platform, and they get faster as they go. Like I say, you'll be able to see that in the in-depth boss guide below. Because there is quite a few variations of bosses that aren't shown in this, such as that one, Baroness, King Dice, and quite a few others. Going to Goopy. Like I say, Goopy is probably one of your first bosses, so this isn't too tricky. There is a couple of things you need to be aware of, which we'll go into, but for the most part, it's just stand, fire, and dash under him as he goes towards you. The couple of iffy points are he can delay his jump quite a bit. That attack, all you have to do is crouch, don't have to worry about it at all. But yeah, he can delay his jump quite a lot, really. So be careful not to panic dash, and make sure to dash only when he is actually jumping. Parry these 3 and go behind him, spam EX attacks. You can get probably 3 off, and then a 4th one as he jumps the first time. Again, he can delay his jump here, so make sure to dash only when he is actually jumping. And then the fist, same as in the first phase, you just have to duck it. And then we're going into third phase. You can spam a couple of EX attacks in here, as it'll still do the total damage. And this one, we just need to dash away as he goes to do the attack. Don't go back too quickly, as he lifts back up, he still has a hitbox. So make sure to dash out the way and stay out the way until he is actually sliding away again. I would also, if you're using the EX attack, use the EX attack on him as he's sliding away from you, as that maximizes the damage. As if it's coming towards you, the hitboxes can pass too quickly and not get the total damage from that EX attack. Onto the first flying level, which is quite mean, because for the first boss with a new mechanic, Hilda has a lot going on. This will be another one where there's 2 Zodiac variations. I can't remember which one we had in this one. For the second one, so you can either have the Sagittarius or the Gemini one. So we'll only see one in this one, like I say, guides below. But yeah, Hilda, here we go. I also think I did something strange in this run when I was testing a few things, so I'll have to go through what I would recommend instead. But yeah. This hat, you can use the shrink or just move up and down. The projectiles, you can parry the projectiles, but sometimes it's just easier to move out of the way. It's just safety first with a no-hit run. With this this first Zodiac, just dash up, dash down. Because he'll lift up. Once you've done enough damage though to go into the next phase, he can just randomly attack. Without warning, so be careful of that. If you've done enough damage, she can just do one final attack in that phase. The tornado there, you want to be going below it. It'd be the easiest way, as it has the smallest hitbox at the bottom. So here is the thing I would change. This one I was testing about using EX attacks, but I wouldn't recommend. What I'd recommend doing is in that second Hilda phase to build up for a nuke to use in this Zodiac phase. I find it a lot more consistent as this was a bit of a mess of a run, mess of a fight. So I'd recommend using a nuke for that second phase as opposed to using the EX attacks as I was doing. But yeah, with Hilda, with the attacks, the projectiles just have to learn to move out the way, just getting used to the play mechanic. Also, for that third phase, build up a nuke for this final phase that speeds it up. The stars move up and down to avoid, and you want to be looking just below the UFOs, as it'll turn red just before it fires, so you'll know whether to dash across early or wait until it has fired first. So just looking right below it, it'll turn, a red light will go on, and then you know whether to leave it or go past quick, and I'd recommend using the shrink to go past quick. But the Hilda blimp attacks, the hat, use the shrink form to go up and down quick. The tornado, you can go above it, but it has a wider hitbox, and so I'd recommend going below it. And then the Gemini, again the same. Instead of the X-Tax that I showed there, I'd recommend using the nuke instead, as it speeds up the phase and is a lot safer because you can use the nuke for iframes. Okay, going into the second aisle, which I personally find the trickiest. I think the second aisle is actually harder than the third aisle, even though there's more bosses in the third aisle. But the first one is, again, like Cagney, I put Baroness at the start because I find Baroness one of the trickiest ones in this. But you can change Baroness to much later if you want to, if you're more confident at it. But I put Baroness at the start. So Baroness, there's 5 mini-bosses potential. You have to face 3 mini-bosses at first, and you have to face 5. So with this one, I recommend just keep firing, stay on the left-hand side, walk in between these projectiles that fall on the floor. If you're stuck in a position where there's multiple ones or you can't walk safely, use your smoke dash to iframe, smoke dash into the wall to iframe, as it can be a saver. This one will go in a bit of a loop around the arena, as well as because it's second phase, these jelly beans will now spawn on the floor. Crouch and just fire along the floor to get rid of them. And the mini boss that just went through, use the smoke dash to pass through. Jawbreaker, I use an EX. Normally, you don't have to worry about the Jawbreaker too much. Just go in this little loop, this little circle that I do, continuously firing at it. I use an EX tack to speed up this phase because we now have Baroness firing as well. I normally do that for whichever mini-boss it is because there's so much going on to try and speed up that third phase. In this final phase, this head will follow you 6 times. 7th time will track you again, but will go off screen. So keep track of the number of stops it's done. So 6 stops, and then it'll follow you again, but this time going off screen. So I'd recommend you go into the very left side of the screen to get some EX stacks off. So lead the head to the right hand side and then back to the left. And then you can. The best damage points to do is being on the right hand side on the floor, aiming up as we did with the Cagney fight, as well as on the platform, firing along the right. But the main thing with that fight is just avoiding the head, as it is very tricky, especially with the parryable object that rolls around. So now I do Beppi. I do Beppi now instead of Djimmi, as Djimmi I personally find easier. But mainly because I want to get rid of Grim, as Grim's third phase is probably one of the trickiest in this entire run. So going into Beppi fight. Beppi's got 4 phases. The trickiest part is the start of second phase, mainly because of just the pea shooter. If you've got the spread attack, this will be much easier. So jumping up, we're going to be firing and getting rid of these ducks as soon as they spawn, and then just jump and dash over Beppi. This phase is pretty simple, just as long as you get the ducks. So yeah, keep turning around and then angling up, as the gap between the ducks is quite consistent, so you'll know when the next one's appearing. So going into second phase, I try and get rid of the mobs, and then we're going to be always going towards the right, so I use EX attacks to clear the path to the right. So if there's mobs on the right, I use an EX attack to clear that path whilst on the roller coaster. Afterwards, once you're on flat, once the roller coaster's passed, then you can focus damage on Beppi, but whilst the roller coaster's going below you, I'd recommend clearing that path to the right so you've got a safe way there. With the horse, the green one fires those up and down projectiles, which you can smoke dash through. The yellow one fires a straight line, which fires out very quickly. So make sure to not be in the air whilst that's happening. As well as if you're on the roller coaster whilst that yellow attack is happening and the projectiles are falling down, you can use the EX attack to pause yourself in the air. So you can pause yourself in that gap between the projectiles as it falls down. Next one will be keep an eye on the roller coaster in the background, as that's how you tell when it's coming on screen, and it appears a lot quicker in this fight. So with this phase, we're going to be going to whichever side spawns the mobs first. We're going to be dropping down there and getting rid of the mobs with 2 EX attacks, and then ignoring the other ones or using smoke dash to avoid the projectiles from the other ones. So here we get to the side, drop down, use EX to get rid of those 2. They'll be firing horizontally, so we can easily smoke dash. Keep an eye on the roller coaster in the background to jump up when we need to. Once you get a bit of practice, that is a tricky phase to get used to, but once you get a bit of practice, that last phase is quite right, as because you're going to be on flat ground after dealing with those mobs on either side, you'll be able to smoke dash the other projectiles, and then you'll be jumping up onto the platform, so you should never really have to worry about projectiles in the air. So going on to Grim, who I personally find one of the trickiest fights for this run, especially the third phase, but we'll go into that as we get to it. Also, Expert is actually easier because the clouds go the other way, which makes third phase easier, but side point. So, Grim is the first one with no floor and where we have to go onto these small moving platforms. These you can just jump into the air and get them to fire off screen. Parrying the last one can be handy to speed up this phase a bit. These fireballs you can actually jump over into the ceiling kind of in order to go above, even if it fires up, as well as just smoke dashing through. The tail, you can stay on the left side. The tail stays in the same position on screen, so you can actually just stay in your same position as the clouds and just let the clouds come toward you. But that phase isn't too bad. This phase is a bit trickier, and the thing with these fireballs is they'll jump at your last position, so they'll crouch, and wherever your position was when they crouched, that's where they're going to jump towards. So that's you really need to get that in mind on how to avoid them. So that one crouches when we're on the left side, so we know we have to jump over to the right or dash to the right. Smoke dash you don't really have to use too much, but it can be good for using the iframes just in case. I also save EX attacks for this third phase to try and speed it up. So this one takes a bit of practice. You need to get used to moving up and down between the platforms. Be careful of making sure to not be crouched when you're trying to jump, as you'll just fall through the platform. So that just takes a while to get used to that sort of movement. But I'm quite safe with this fight, as I don't continuously fire. I get onto the platform, check that it's safe, and then start firing. It does make it a little slower, but I personally find safer. So get onto the platform, check that you make sure you're not going to break one of the projectiles, which then spawns more projectiles, and then fire. And then once the flamethrower is happening, angle down and use your EX attacks. As well as if the flamethrower is going on and you don't have time to get to the top, don't try and panic rush to the top either. You can stay on the bottom level, and you have quite a bit of time because it takes you a while to reach Grim's hitbox. But as soon as that first flamethrower is gone, make sure to get to the top and angle down, as you won't be able to stay there infinitely. But Grim, third phase, does take a bit of practice, getting used to that movement up and down, getting used to dropping through the platforms and leading the projectiles away. Going into Wally. Wally's an interesting one because we make good use of the nukes in this fight, building them up for third and fourth phase. So we'll go into it. First phase with the eggs, if you just stay on the left-hand side of the screen and move up and down, the eggs and the egg projectiles it spawns as well can't hit you. So we just stay on the left, move up and down to avoid those. Then once we've done enough damage, it'll start spawning these birds. You can parry the final bird. It's not really necessary. That bullet attack, just use your shrink form, or you don't even need to use your shrink form and go between the gaps. In this phase, you can use 1 EX attack, maybe 2 if you can get a parry in, or make like additional ones if you get parries in. But you want to make sure this attack you just move up and down. The feathers come at the same way each time, so just move up and down between those gaps, and those gaps will be the same. But going into the next phase, we want to have a nuke here. So what we're going to do is go into the gap, use your nuke early just to make sure you don't run into him. And then use that, and now we're going to be building up for one more nuke for final phase. So I do this phase a little bit slower just to ensure that we get that nuke. So we're going to be parrying these projectiles, that's the only thing you can do. Use the shrink form to go next to him and then dash out, or use the increased speed from the shrunk form to dash out or move out. But it takes a little bit of practice to get used to that, but once it's comfy, it's not too bad. But once we've built up for another nuke, we're now just going to try and finish this phase. And the reason we're building up with a nuke is for extra safety in this final phase, because this is the trickiest one. So what we're doing is start off, use the bombs, and then we're going to position ourselves on the bottom left level. If it moves to the right, this is the easiest RNG, as we can just keep firing, avoid the projectiles as it drops to the ground, parry the stuff that comes through, and then once we're like trapped in the corner here, that's when we use the nuke, as we're going to use the iframes to dash out. So if he moves to the left immediately, then we'd be using the nuke immediately. And then we keep firing, and then so if it moves to the left, we use the nuke, dash out as we did there, and then it'll move over to the right, and then I would move back to that bottom left position, and then spam EX attacks as soon as you build up. And in either case, one nuke and continuous firing will finish that phase. Also, when that heart goes out, you can't do any more damage to the body. You have to fire and do damage against that heart. But yeah, that's Wally. The final one of IL2 will be Djimmi, which has the most amount of phases. He has like 5 phases. But this first phase has 3 different variations, which we'll only see one here. But he has the swords, the cats, and the treasure. And I'm not entirely sure what we had in this run. But irrespective of which one it is, he always does a skull attack, which you'll see here. Which you want to either be... You want to be on top of for this. Well, it depends on where the swords spawn, in fairness. But above or below, that always spawns, so make sure to avoid that. The swords are fine. Just avoid where they're lining up. They line up at the top, left, or at the bottom. So avoid where they're lining up, and then you just move up and down or left or right to avoid those. Just be aware that that skull is always coming at the start. This, I use the bombs as they break it in one go. You can use the machine gun, but it just takes a bit longer. So I shrink and then spawn a bomb as soon as it happens. With this, using the X-Tack as soon as it spawns. If you've built up for a nuke, you can actually use it here, as we'll build up enough for another nuke for the final phase, as you do need a nuke for the final phase. It makes it super consistent, but you will have enough time to build up another nuke through the rest of this phase, as well as in the penultimate phase, which is this one. With that one that just went, just stay at the top and use bombs. It's nothing really more complicated than that. Here, I position myself in the middle for the hat to follow on the left. Let it follow just below it. It will do a slight movement and then dash close. You want to do that as you want the hat to spawn projectiles on the left-hand side. So left, drop down, let it move slightly, and then dash close. You have to dash close, and you have to keep close as the marionette will be moving backwards. So make sure to just copy that. And then with this, you want to wait until this projectile is close, and then use a nuke. Then continue firing, move out the way of the eye lasers, and then you should be finished before he gets the second one off. But that strat requires a nuke. Keep firing, nuke when his attack gets close. Keep an eye on where the eye lasers are going to appear, moving up and down depending on how to avoid them. And then just keep firing. You can use an EX attack, but it's not strictly necessary. But as soon as you do that, that final phase is the same every time. So going on to my least favourite boss, and probably my most inconsistent boss in this run, which is not to say the most difficult. I think the Devil's the most difficult, but in terms of the most inconsistent, mainly because of second and third phase, in fairness. the bee. So the bee has 3 phases. The first phase is fine. It goes really quickly. Second and third phase is where stuff gets tricky, and we do a specific setup in second phase. So second phase, you want to be getting to 4 cards, or just over 4 cards, tiny bit over 4 cards. But first phase, we're just going to be firing up. He spawns this bomb, which it itself doesn't have a hitbox, but the projectiles it spawns do. But they can just be smoke dashed through to go to where the bomb was originally. And then the mobs that spawn as well, they can just shoot them down as well. Here you can parry this as well. But yeah, first phase isn't the issue. Second phase, there's 3 different attacks. Which one do we see first? We see this. Okay, so this one, she'll spawn 2 of them. So you want to get this one to follow you to go off screen. And then the second one will spawn normally around the center of the screen. So again, lead it around to get out. Second attack we'll see here is the triangle. This is the trickiest one as it'll spawn on you. So the first one you want to try and lead off screen, but in a position where you can get out of the way of the second triangle spawning on you. And then so because we parried it, we got to 5 cards. But if you didn't parry anything, you'd be at 4 cards. And then because of that, we then want to spam all the EX attacks in this phase. These attacks mix up, these 3 attacks mix up. So this bee that climbs up, just move up and down the platforms on the very right or very left hand side, your preference. But yeah, this one we're trying to do as much damage in this second phase as possible. So once you've built up to those 4 cards, or 5 cards if you've parried in that second phase, you want to spam in all your EX attacks, the third attack she does. With this third phase, just go on the left or right hand side and angle down in the corner, or you can go above and aim down. With the fists, if they go off screen, they're going to be circling down below you. So you saw that one, it went above, it's going to turn around and come below us if that's its first turn or just appeared on screen. Or you can use smoke dash, especially with the saw hand. If that goes to the side, you need to be on the very left or very right 1.5 platforms. But yeah, thing with that fight is we do that setup in second phase to do as much damage during her third attack in second phase with the EX attacks, because we want to have as little time as possible in third phase. So 4 cards and then spam EX attacks in her third attack of second phase. And then stay at the sides, angling down at an angle for third phase. So robots, we're going to be doing this very specific pattern. So we aim at the we get rid of this at the top first. Normally takes about 3 visits, 2 or 3 visits, and then we go to the bottom and we get rid of the bottom one. Parry this at the top. The bombs that then spawn afterwards, we just make sure to destroy them before they get close, as they can be really dangerous if they build up. So top, bottom, keep flying down to get rid of those bombs, and then destroying the heart. This middle attack can either be this magnet, which isn't too bad to deal with as the gaps are quite wide. Second phase, you need a nuke. We position ourselves in front of where he's going to be flying. A few machine gun fires and then nuke just as he's about to reach us, and that gets rid of second phase completely. Again, so we don't have to deal with any more of the bombs. This one is just bullet hell. There's not much strategy to it really. Just make sure to avoid the barriers that move up and down, as well as parrying the projectiles that you can do. The nuke can be used for iframes if you need to, but obviously for damage is the best way. And then the EX attacks go through the barriers. So once you've done 1 nuke, I'd say then just spam EX attack, and you can build up to these quite quickly if you get a good parryable projectiles coming at you. That one I'm not actually sure. I'm not actually sure how big the AoE is on those attacks. But even if you fail and as I did there, and it goes into a projectile, then you've still got the iframe saving you from any of the other projectiles. But yeah, the robot, aim for the top one first, drop down. Normally it'll be able to get 2 lasers off. So go to the top, drop down, get rid of some of the mobs at the bottom, go back up, get rid of the laser, and then drop down, and you'll be aiming for the bottom one at first as well. But that first phase becomes very systematic, building up for a nuke in second phase to get rid of that straight away, and then third phase the bullet hell. Sally is fine, really, apart from second phase, which can be a bit tricky. So pretty much everything in first phase can be dashed away from or just walked under. So these fans, I normally like her to position them quite close to her. The dive that she does, that like you dash under it or walk under it. There's nothing to it really. The drop down, wait until you see where she's dropping down to dash, as she doesn't have to drop on top of you. So make sure to know where she is dropping down before using the dash. And then the dive, just walk or dash under. Second phase, where things get a little bit more tricky. What we're going to be wanting to do is, after she's finished pointing, because she's not technically taking damage here. Now she's taking damage. So you have to avoid the baby dropping bottles through the floor, through the window, I should say, as well as these mobs. So personally, the way I found is, in this one we got a good RNG because she went the other way, but is dashing past her, because then you're making as much distance as possible between you and her, so then you can deal with the mobs that she spawns separately. So these mobs, just walk in between as you did for like the onion in the root pack, and then try to dash past her to deal with those mobs on a different side. This third phase, everything can be smoke dashed. That wave is smoke dashed. The lightning, wait where it's preparing and smoke dash it. The meteor, you can break and then parry for an EX tack, extra EX tack. But I wouldn't parry it if there's lightning next, which you can see in the top left corner, as it tells you what it's doing. Just to the right of this left curtain, that's where she's going to spawn, so be sure to send an EX tack up as she spawns for that extra damage, and then you can jump up and send one after her. And then the final phase, you can just dash over, jump and dash over. Just keep an eye on the roses. Yeah. Sally is not tricky. It's just that second phase, getting used to walking between those falling mobs, keep an eye on the baby, and dash past her as she's diving down in order to try and deal with the mobs separately. Next one will be Werner, which is another one a bit like Sally, where Smoke Dash is just going to be helping us throughout the entire thing. Apart from second phase is a little bit more tricky, which you have to do a bit more moving up and down. But first and third phase is iframe galore. So first phase has 3 different attacks. This one, with these, we're going to be jumping over as they fall as well, because they send these flame projectiles along the floor. So you saw just then that I used the smoke dash to hang in the air as well, as 2 of them dropped quickly back to back. This catapult one just smoke dash through, as well as this charge just smoke dash through. But using EX attack and dashes on that on those bombs is a really good way to pause yourself in the air to allow those flame projectiles to go underneath you. This one, he'll just move up and down, doing flamethrowers to clear the area. With this one, you can drop behind this one at the bottom and then smoke dash to the side. Here, we'll be jumping over. This, yeah, there's not much to be said here, really. Just keep an eye on what's spawning. You want to be using all your EX attacks at the start of this phase, as you want to speed this phase up quite a bit. And then just keep an eye on making sure which level he's on, and then dashing past him or jumping over the bottle tops as they come near you. So with this attack, he very well telegraphs which side the cat's attacking, and then the stuff that comes from the sky, the planks that come from the sky, they just alternate side from side. They're not really dependent on which side that he attacks. They just start from the right, then go to the left, then right, then left, then right. These ghost mice I try and get rid of, as they're just extra annoyance to focus on. So I'd save the EX attacks, unless you built up to like 4, because then you can use it on Werner. But if you've got 2, I'd use those for the ghost mice just to get rid of, so you only have to focus on 2 things with Werner.
Appreciate you, Jake.
But yeah, that's Werner. Probably the trickiest part is that second phase, and if you get poor positioning in that first phase with the bombs. But like I say, remember you can use the dash or EX attacks, or both, to hang in the air for those flame projectiles to go underneath you along the floor if needed. Briney is, personally, I find a tricky one.
Just have to wait till you get back.
Especially this, I found with the second phase, but we got more consistent with the second phase, which we'll go through. The barrel is something you have to concern yourself with the entire fight. So it's just learning how to time in when is a good place to let it drop down, sometimes forcing it to drop down. Such as here, if the shark was spawning, then we would be going under it and then dashing away. But this first phase is fine. It's just the barrel and Briney firing those projectiles, which can get up to 3 parryable projectiles, so you can build up EX attacks really quickly. He's got 3 things he can spawn. These dogfish, which he spawns 4 of them, which you can crouch and get rid of. Once you see him spawn that gun, quotations, dash away quickly because he can fire really quickly. Almost glitch levels quick sometimes. The squid I like to get rid of, just for safety really. I don't like the screen being covered too much, even though it technically doesn't do damage. And then you can spam EX attacks because of just how many parable things there are in this run. So the shark will go just over halfway, so make sure you're out of the way. As well as with that one, like I say, it sometimes can be a good idea to let the barrel drop early before the shark appears. Then you just have to keep an eye on the ship in this point in the final phase, or final section of this phase, because of the firing up. Trickiest part with those is if the dogfish are there as well, you have to crouch and then fire as well. With this final phase, you want to be jumping over these projectiles if you're on the right hand side. You can use the EX attacks, as say, to pause yourself in the air. But that takes a little bit of timing, but you get used to it. But the safer way, I personally find, like that way is really good for damage, but if you want a safer way, this is probably it. So you stay on the left hand side and then jumping over these projectiles on the left hand side. So that one on the right side where you jump using the X attack to pull yourself in the air over the first spawn, over the spawning projectiles immediately. That's better for better damage, but if you want to do it more safely, I'd recommend staying on the left side, jumping over those, always being aware of where the barrel is. Especially if the barrel's coming over to the right side whilst you're doing that right side strat, as you may need to dash all the way over to the left to avoid the barrel dropping on you. And then for the laser, just crouch, and you can dash when you crouch, so that you can also avoid the barrel as well whilst you're crouched. You can also power that laser, bit of FYI, but I wouldn't recommend. It's very tricky. Or parry on top of the laser, I should say. Cala's got 6 different attacks, with 3 attacks that she herself attacks with, and 3 attacks from the bottom. So there is combinations of each one of those, so 1 from each of those 2 sets. So with these pirate ones, dashing up and down, it's so tricky to talk about this fight because there is so many variations. Like I said, this is one I'd highly recommend watching my in-depth guide because there is so many variations with these. The electric fish, you want to be going up and around in a circle, leading off screen. The turtle, you want to be getting close, getting that bomb to spawn as quickly as possible, so that you have the whole of the left side of the screen to use to avoid the stuff she's spawning. You want to build up a nuke in that first phase. Get some damage off immediately, then dash up. I make a bit of it here, but if you dash up quick enough, you'll be able to avoid. Once enough eels have spawned, I use the nuke to do damage and get rid of the eels. And then we get close, and we're going to be looking at the right side of Cala to make sure we know where those barriers are coming over to the left, and just position yourself up and down. She can't actually hit you, weird hitboxes or something, so she can't hit you in this position. So just focus on the right hand side, keeping your finger on the attack button, and moving up and down away from the barriers. But yeah. So yeah, sorry I didn't go too much into first phase, but like I said, that one I would actually just recommend watching my guide on because there is just so many variations with those 6 attacks. Second phase, though, I would say make sure to have a nuke. You can do damage at the start of the phase, either with bombs or with machine guns. Move out of the way of the freeze, and then wait for eels to spawn. There is a really long one that spawns on her left-hand side, which you should get rid of first with bombs if it spawns, and then do a nuke attack to a chest, as that is the best place to get rid of most of the eels. And then just continue firing until third phase, which you shouldn't have time to do another freeze attack. This first phase of the Phantom Express is fine. Just jump up and down, get rid of the wheels. I parry the left wheel to stop the pumpkins activating the right one. As if the projectile that drops hits the right platform, it's going to move you closer, which is almost impossible to avoid. So parry that left wheel to make sure that's deactivated. Second phase isn't tricky. If you're on the left or right side of the platforms, the hands can't hurt you, as we do here. So your main thing to avoid or to focus on is getting rid of the pumpkins before they get to your platform. So the alternate directions, so left then right, then left then right. So just aim, get rid of them before they appear above you. Because this phase, if you're on the left or right side of the platform, you've got nothing to worry about. Third phase, you want to spam all your EX attacks on one of them straight away, as you want to be dealing with one as soon as possible. The ghosts are you have to be a bit careful of, as you don't want to be destroying them as they're above the wheel. If that does happen, you can smoke dash through that lightning attack onto the platform again, but it is very risky. So in some cases, I actually just use the EX attack when we're in this position with the ghosts to make sure to get rid of them, as sometimes, because the pea shooter just shoots in straight lines, I use the EX attack to get rid of the ghosts early. But other than that, just stay on one side, make sure to avoid, and then angle up to get rid of the boss. For the final phase, you have to parry the tail first to open the heart so you can do damage. Listen to the audio cue of the bone boomerang appearing, just so you know when you'll have to jump, and then it's just walk back and forth between to avoid the fire. Like I say, keep an ear out for the audio cue for the bone boomerang spawning, as you'll know to keep like in the peripheral vision that the bone's going to be coming down. But the fireballs aren't too bad. It's just the onion again. A little trickier as they come down a little quicker and in groups, but you'll have had practice at this. And then a really good way to do damage here is, as you may have seen, is parry the tail and then using the EX attack while you're up there. It's just really a way to get some good damage off, because you'll get all the EX damage up there. But yeah, that's Phantom Express. King Dice is interesting, because King Dice, you've got 9 potential mini bosses, but we do it where we do the same 3 each time, because with the smoke dash, it makes all but one of them free, essentially. The first and third mini boss are free. The second one is a little bit tricky, but is the easiest one in that set. And then King Dice will just be parrying. But yeah, we'll go into it, as well as we'll go into how to do the dice as well. So in order to get consistent dice rolls, what you want to be doing is crouch underneath the dice. This is one way to do it. I have another way, but this is the one I'll recommend. Crouch underneath the dice, and whichever number you want. So we want a 2. So we'll jump on the 3 and then parry the 2. So jump and immediate parry. So 3, jump, immediate 2. So you want the one just before the one you want. Crouch and jump, immediate parry. So the chips. There's nothing much to be said. They'll go from one side of the arena to the other in different forms, but just smoke dash everything. And then just aim up. Yeah, this is why we do this one. So the best thing to do really is get consistent at the dice roll. Once you've done that, you'll get these every time. The other 2 are still pretty simple, but this is free. Just smoke dash everything. You can crouch, you can jump through, but if you smoke dash, you've never got any risk. So going into the next one. The next one is the rabbit, which is a touch tricky, but we'll go into that. But yeah, so this one is going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to be crouching, jumping at the 1, and then parrying the 2. And again here, so this one we're going for number 5. So we want 2 again. So 1, 2, 3. So I make a bee of that. So jump at the 1, parry the 2, 1, 2. And then I was probably just a bit nervous because we're at the end of the run. Okay, so with the rabbit is a touch tricky because of the powers that we have to do in this. So here's the first one. You do have quite a bit of time to parry this, so you want to jump once those projectiles on the floor start moving. And then the ones from the ceiling, I'd recommend going below a parryable one that is not above the card, as I find the card makes it a touch tricky because you can land on it, and it just messes up your parry timing. So I'd recommend going underneath a parryable projectile. Underneath a parryable projectile that's not above the card, and vice versa when one's coming from below. The ones coming from below, jump, ready to parry once they've started moving, as you have that time, and it just makes sure you don't like panic jump. Try to time it. And now we want a 3 because we're going for number 7. So 1, 2, 3, 7. 1, 2, 3. So we're jumping on the 2, parrying the 7. Crouch makes it a lot easier because you can mess it up if you just stay standing, so the crouch is actually necessary, or makes it a lot easier. So this is another free one. So the 2 attacks that she does, we just smoke dash through. So smoke dash that attack that she does there, and then she'll move from side to side, which, yeah, we smoke dash through. Essentially free. With King Dice, this one, because it's free, we don't need to use any EX attacks, we just build up to full. And then we're going to be going straight to King Dice. King Dice is just parrying the cards. I would not recommend using the smoke dash, apart from one situation, which is right at the start, if there are 3 cards between you and the parryable one. But that's only at the start. If there's 3 cards whilst you're parrying between them, you can parry jump, quotations, from one card to the other. It's only when you're jumping up to parry the first time. Let's hit like this exact situation. Jump, dash, and then we're just going to be parrying for the rest of it. Parrying, use the attack in the middle, and then go to the side. Like, we've got 3 cards here, but we can parry jump between them. You don't want to be doing any dashing once you're above the cards and doing the parrying. It should all be parrying. Only using the dash if there's plenty of space that you need to get onto the first card. So here we jump, dash, parry, and then we stay parrying. You can take your time with it, as I saw there. You move along to the right hand side and just give yourself some time. There is no rush in this phase. That's the only thing you can do. If you just get the parrying down, you'll be completely fine.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, do that the same way each time, and Devil and King Dice is one of the easiest fights. 2 free mini bosses. Once you've got the parrying down in that final phase, King Dice is fine. And once you've got the confidence with the parrying in the rabbit, that one's fine as well. Just don't panic when it goes from the bottom up. Jump once it starts moving, you've got the time. And position yourself below the parryable one. That's not above a card, if possible. Sometimes they're both above it, and that's just a tricky situation. But in most cases, you'll have one that's not above the card. So do that one, as it avoids the issue of landing on the card and messing up your parry timing. And then, finally, we're on the Devil. Which I think I start talking about if we can, like, skip it and do the, like, accept the deal kind of thing. Which would make this run a lot easier. Okay, so the Devil, again, this is one I'd highly recommend my guide, as there is a lot of variations in this, but we'll just go through this fight. So he has 6 different attacks, plus the little devilings that appear from behind. The devilings, just keep an eye on which side they come from the chair, and you'll know which way they're going to appear. This one, we want to be going to the other side of the arena that the snake's coming from, or the snake form's coming from. As you saw there, a small devil was appearing from that side, so we had to jump over. With that goat clap, using the EX attack to hang in the air. If you don't have an EX attack, we're going to be using the smoke dash. So stay in the center of the arena, jump away and dash towards the center, using that dash to stay in the air over that goat clap. Those fireballs that you saw there, get to one side of the arena, jump over the ones that you can. If you need smoke dash for iframes, then use that. This one's fine. The spider, just dash when it hits the ground as it's coming above. It doesn't always drop below you or drop directly on you, so make sure to see where it's spawning on screen before dashing. This one is tricky. It spawns very quickly. Get to one side of the screen, let it follow you, parry, and then go to the other side of the screen, letting it follow you again. Second phase. Second phase has three things actually. There's parry ones, parry those, don't strike them. They've got a very large AoE explosion, so parry those, don't strike them. I've just said that. The poker chips, keep an eye on. You'll need to dash, move across very quickly. The axe, if you stay on the left or right platform as you see here, it will do like 2 spins. The first one you don't have to worry about. The second one we jump over. And then third one, it'll be gone by the time we're there.
No, you don't.
Third phase, you want to be in the center of the arena. The mobs at the side, use EX attacks immediately to get rid of. Aim up to try and get rid of these fly mobs as soon as possible. And then angle, if any, go to the side. Always return into the center of the arena. So here, fire up, try and get rid of as many as possible. They all go in the center, so that was really nice RNG. Anytime the mobs spawn on the side, we're using the EX attack. And you want to stay in the center as well because these poker chips, you have 2 choices of getting out of the way if the poker chip lands above. So there we could go to the left or right. Here I'm in a bit of a bad position. I should have gone back and then got rid of the mob on the left, but I just went YOLO and started using the EX attacks to speed this phase up. And then final phase, you want to position yourself with a foot off the platform, as that is perfect for jumping up
Cuphead No Hit Run, done!
For positioning yourself between the tier and the poker chip. So position with a foot over the platform, either on the left or right side, and that means you can jump up and around between the tier and the poker chip. You can't position yourself much closer on the platform as it brings the risk of jumping up into the poker chip. But yeah, that's been a casual commentary over my Cuphead No Hit Run. Hopefully it was useful. Like I say, it is a little bit rushed because it is only one run, and I can't take my time with it. But yeah, anything that's unclear, anything not sure or went over too quickly, then put in the comments below. I'll be happy to respond. Like I said a couple of times, in-depth boss guides on each of these in playlist in the description, as well as any other queries that needed. I'm stream live at twitch.tv/WayofLoki. So any queries, happy to ask there, and we'll be happy to answer. So yeah, if you enjoyed that, got some value, or interested in more Cuphead stuff, then hit the subscribe button, and I shall see you in the next video.